Hi, this is Paul Slackers, Good News Planet. I'm speaking to Peter Bishop. Hello, Mr. Bishop. How are you doing today?
Hello, I'm fine.
Good.
Thank you.
Peter's a good friend and a man who understands technology and has been in that industry for some time. And we're working together on a new concept for a telephone, one of these, a two-screen handset. And we want to discuss that, and we want to talk about technology unto itself. Peter, what's your background? Give me a little bit of the history of you.
Well, I've been in high tech my whole life. So I have a Ph.D. in computer science out of M.I.T. And I started off work at the Xerox Palo Alto Research Center right at the peak, working on the Alto, the original Alto.
The original what? What do you call that?
The Alto. So that was the computer that they were building, that the scientists at Xerox PARC built before there really were much in the way of any personal computers. But it was very much like modern-day computers, except with not much memory.
So the Xerox was the first one to create a computer, or MIT?
No. MIT had created computers a long time ago. So MIT, for example, holds the patent on magnetic core memory, which was the kind of main memory that was used before we were able to use semiconductor memory. So they'd been building computers for a long time. So they had a good lead in education for computer science during the 60s.
Interesting. Boy, this industry is really taken over the world. Let's take a moment here, and then you continue on from the Xerox to independent consulting, or?
No. I then I left Xerox in 1980 when it was starting to explode. So just as many people were leaving Xerox PARC to form Adobe and Apple, and join Apple and provide people who are used to building windowing systems, because Xerox PARC had actually invented the idea of the modern windowing system GUI with the icons and the windows and all that kind of stuff. And so people went from Xerox PARC to all of the other companies, including Microsoft and Sun Microsystems, all the other companies that wanted to do windowing and icons, and people from Xerox went there and helped them do it. And so I left for National Semiconductor, where they were busy coming out with their 16032 microprocessor, which was the first microprocessor with a virtual memory management unit. And I'd done a lot of work on virtual memory at MIT, and so I was very excited about a microcomputer, as we called them at the time, that would have a hardware memory management unit for doing virtual memory.
All right. Been a busy guy in technology. Well, we're honored to have the opportunity to work with you on what we're calling a two-screen handset, and/or a netbook or a notebook, or just using two screens at the same time. Give us a little bit of background on that.
Well, the way we got into it is, I'd met Tina Ebay in Silicon Valley, and she had done some work a long time ago on laptops. And her background is more in the arts, and but she'd done some work on laptops, and so she was very interested in having more extensive graphics for laptop computers. And so she was working with a number of other scientists as well as me to try to figure out something we could come up with that would then be a new invention. And so we came up with this idea of putting a second display on a laptop computer. Excuse me.
You want a drink of water or something?
Yeah, you know what? Boy, that really took me by surprise. I'm sorry, Paul.
That's okay.
Let me get a little drink of water.
Have a little water.
Yeah.
Nice and easy. When I got married, we had a rabbi and a priest, and he started coughing. And I told him to take a little water. And everybody started laughing. I think I probably told him to take a little wine.
Ah, right. There you go.
In fact, I could do a little wine right now myself.
Yeah. All right. So now I'm better. Hopefully
right,
that's sufficient.
All righty.
So Tina and I were working on this idea for how to get more graphics into a laptop computer. And we really decided that what was needed was a second display. As we continued thinking about it, and I started saying, well, look, in a laptop computer or even a mobile device, because at that time I was doing advanced software for doing enterprise software on all mobile devices. And so I was heavily involved with the smartphone of the day, and especially the BlackBerry as well as the Pocket PC. Mm-hmm. And so, I was thinking a lot about these devices, and I thought about those things. I said, well, wait a minute. These devices, you can only have one application. You can only see one application at a time on these screens. But here we've been using windowing on our desktops for, since I was at Xerox, and we really needed these two windows, and we found lots of great uses for the multiple windows. Mm-hmm. And so I'm sitting there looking at this thing and saying, you know what? In order to do that on this phone, we really need a second display, because these displays are so small. And the more I thought about it, the more it seemed to me that what really made sense was that you needed to have a second display built in into the handheld computer, into the smartphone, in such a way that you could just flip it out and deploy it, and then all of a sudden you would have the second screen. That it had to be built in. It could not be an add-on, because that would just be too bulky and too inconvenient. You'd never take it with you. It would never be there when you wanted it. Whereas if it was built in, then it would be right there when you needed it. It would be very quick and easy to deploy. And now all of a sudden, you'd be able to do some of the things that you could do on a laptop computer. You'd be able to do it on your smartphone, because you could see two things at once. Mm-hmm. And it turns out that the two things is the critical number. This is the most important use of the multiple windows, so that you can be constructing content in one window while you're looking at information that you are using for reference purposes in the other window. So you might have Googled some information out of Wikipedia, or you might have been in another application that's showing you some critical information over there, or whatever it is, and now you're looking at the information there, and now you are creating content in the other window.
Mm-hmm. We have an example of that with using Good News as the on one side and some features on the other side. So it's all good. Or watching a Super Bowl on one side and then texting on the other? Or emailing somebody? That works?
Well, and especially if you are watching a replay and now you are trying to create a review of that game, for example.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
But yes, you could be texting at the same time, although I think that if you're just doing simple texting, I suspect that there are many. I suspect this might be possible. You know what, Paul? I guess I'm not sure that that's possible. To actually watch a game, I guess you can't do that, can you? Watch a game on the smartphone and then text at the same time. But I think that's going to be high on the priority list as a special case that people do want to support once they really get used to the idea that you're watching a game on the smartphone.
So the future, though, because they're saying nowadays, that everybody's watching TV and they have a computer on their lap when they're watching the TV. So the average now, I think, was over like 50 or 60%, whatever it is. Our people are using two devices at one time. So can this, depending on whatever the size this is created in, to a certain degree, might be able to eliminate that, right? The need for two computer screens, or a monitor and a screen, because they're all making a marriage now in one unit, in one piece.
Well, right. And, it seems to me that on many desktop and laptop computers, you really don't need two screens unless, there's one place where you need perhaps many, many screens, and that is on a desktop computer where you have a workspace, where the work that you need to do, this is now a workstation, okay? So a desktop workstation may very well have many, many displays. And we've seen many TV shows in which there are workstations possibly used in conferencing situations where you have as many as 8 screens at a time or 16 screens at a time covering an entire wall. But this is now the equivalent of a desktop computer. It's not mobile, okay? Because it needs, if you've got 16 screens, you need a whole room for this thing. And so for the desktop computer, having multiple displays is something that has been supported for a long time. But for a laptop computer, now the problem is the laptop computer is mobile. And so it's very convenient if the screen that it has is as big as you need it to be. And it turns out that with modern screen technology, you can put a lot of pixels on a laptop screen. And so today, screens on laptop computers really do have a lot of pixels, and so you can very effectively have, 2 large windows containing lots and lots of information that pretty much give you more than the capability that we're talking about putting onto a smartphone. So I believe that there really is not a great need for a second display on a laptop computer. But on smartphones and on tablets, there really is, because these 2 devices are really used as heavily mobile devices, even more mobile than a laptop. So I'm noticing that tablets are really excellent tools to be used by workers who are using the tablet to help them do their job, so that the tablet has an application running on it that is directly connected to how they do their job. And now they're either entering information related to what they're doing, or they're interacting with the corporate computers, or in some way the software they're running is associated with their job. And as they walk around to wherever they have to do, they're busy carrying this along, and they're busy communicating with, that they're recording information, they are processing information using the application that they're running that is related to their job.
We just did a story with Hershey announcing how they are educating and helping cocoa farmers in Ghana and soon in West Africa. And their communication device, and this device is the mobile phone. In many places worldwide, the mobile phone is it. Bottom line, we're doing another thing with Johnson & Johnson, a text for baby. Their whole communications to these pregnant mothers for their first year is through texting. So the opportunity of mobility is really, really becoming the standard in many cases, and possibly the only communication device that people are using. And so they've seen ways that they can use it, and I see ways that they could be using 2 screens with their, teaching, educating cocoa farmers and or pregnant mothers. And on one side they could be watching a video, the other one they could be talking to their mother and saying, oh, look at this video, and or whatever it is. A lot of good applications. So this is good news. So when's the product going to come out in the marketplace?
Well, that's what we are busy trying to help make happen. That this has still not been generally recognized as something that by the smartphone manufacturers as something that they really need to do yet.
Well, they're supposed to be smart.
Yes, but we're out there talking to them and letting them know that this sort of thing is possible. It turns out that with the development of the iPhone and the iPad, one of the things that happened is that they took a look at what had been happening with software on the smartphone, and they noticed how successfully the smartphone had eliminated the multiple windows that we had on all of our laptop and desktop computers.
Mm-hmm.
And they realized that, when you are mobile, you have less need for multiple windows at one time than when you are sitting at a desktop. Because it's if you're creating content,
mm-hmm.
that's a time when you have a greater need for a desktop computer than when you're doing the things that you do, that most of your mobility
mm-hmm.
applications are doing. Those are things that are much more related to this particular thing you're doing right now. You have to do it quickly and easily, and so usually you just need one application.
Mm-hmm.
But the oh my goodness, I've lost my train of thought now. Where was I, Paul?
Okay, well,
you were talking just a little bit.
iPhones and that they learned that they don't need so much applications on one phone.
The iPhones, yes. So what happened is that the revolution in the iPhone GUI is they noticed that it was okay to get rid of the multiple windows. And then they said, but now we need to make the GUI even easier to use, so we're going to try to take a step forward in GUI that really takes advantage of the touch screen to take another leap forward in ease of use in the graphical user interface. And that's what they did with the iPhone and the iPad. But they have retained the restriction that you can only have one window at a time, even on the iPad. And so this is a problem that sooner or later people are going to start noticing,
mm-hmm.
that when it comes time to creating content, and relatively serious content, not just texting or a simple email, but
mm-hmm.
a more high-end email, an email that's a little more important than just chatting with your friends. When you do this kind of content creation, now you really need another window, and there, in order to achieve the optimum graphical user interface and ease of use, you really need to see the other screen at the same time as you are creating your email, your high-end email.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. There you go.
And when we start noticing that, then people are going to say, well, wait a minute, here we've achieved all of this ease of use on the iPhone GUI, but we can't do two windows, and my goodness, we knew about doing two windows a long time ago, but the screen isn't big enough for two windows. What do we do now?
Mm-hmm.
And then they're going to say, you know what, the best way to do this is to have a second optionally deployable screen that we will then be as if it's a second window.
All right.
You only really need two of these things on our mobile devices. You know, on a laptop or a desktop, you need multiple windows that are even more than two. Mm-hmm. But for these mobile devices, I think two is really gives us the most important reason for having the multiple windows.
Beautiful. Peter, last question. What's good news for you?
What's good news for me?
Yes, sir.
Well, my goodness gracious.
It's usually
you're going to have to edit this again, Paul. Just a minute. Give me some thought. You caught me by serious surprise here.
Yeah, I always,
presumably you're talking about good news broadcasting, right?
So
no,
we're
that would be
talking
good
about
news?
No, we're talking about whatever's good. What's
good
good in your life? Yeah. Usually the people that have a lot of good things don't know which one to say.
Well, Paul, the good news in my life is, I recently relocated to Washington, D.C.
Okay.
And so now I did that to be close to my grandchildren.
Oh,
which I
really?
just had.
Great.
And so this is just wonderful. My wife is heavily involved in our granddaughter, and so I get to participate. But at the same time, I'm still able to do this work for Village Green.
Beautiful.
And so that's just wonderful.
Fantastic. All right, Peter Bishop, thank you very much for sharing good news with us, and I look forward to speaking with you again.
Well, thank you, and you're welcome.
Thank you. Bye-bye.